Do the trashy pulp novels of the world have anything to offer? Are bestsellers all they're cracked up to be? Here at Terrible Book Club, we explore whether you really can judge a book by its cover, or its ridiculous synopsis. You ever passed a book and thought, ugh, who's reading this? We probably are.
Hello and welcome to episode 111 of Terrible Book Club. I'm Paris, and this is Chris.
Hello.
And this is Mary.
Hello.
This time, we read Hamletmachine, a 1979 play by Heiner Müller. We read a 2001 translation of the original German by Dennis Redmond. This was requested by our patron, Miri. Miri wrote to us saying, I am a costume designer, amongst other things. In college, in order to take any classes in the drama department, including the production design ones, you had to take an intro acting course. There was no requirement for actors to take technical theater classes. Most of the course...
Just real quick, Mary, you are absolutely right to show that is bullshit. That is bullshit.
Agreed.
Yeah,
agreed.
Go ahead.
Continuing with Miri's message. Most of the course consisted of performing part or all of a play in a small group. The plays started with Shakespeare. Somewhere in the middle of the class, one of the other group's performances involved a sock puppet sex scene right in front of the music building. This was the final play. It is ostensibly a masterpiece of Brechtian postmodern theater. I get what it's trying to do, but it's so pretentious and takes itself so seriously that it's also very bad. The version that I was involved in had a moment where the actors were strung up like puppets while disembodied hands tore apart a rotisserie chicken. This was not a particularly weird staging for the play, and there are many versions that have been much weirder. So, thank you, Miri. This was one hell of a recommendation. So, due to the depths of madness that this piece took us to, and the fact that neither of us are thespians, we invited local Boston theater director, actor, and all-around hilarious and glorious human Mary Parker on the show today to guide us through Hamletmachine. Thank you so very, very much for being here today, Mary.
No problem. I'd like to state some of my qualifications for this. I was in a production of Hamlet. Yes, that's right. I'm that much of an expert. I also took a class in post-humanism, and I didn't read any of the books, and then I wrote my final paper on RoboCop and got an A. So, yeah.
Hell yes.
Amazing!
Pretty much a genius level philosophy student right here.
That's how you do higher ed. That's how you do it.
I also wonder if Miri, she's talking about the sock puppet sex scene. I wonder if that's a play called Hand to God, which is about like these kids and like the sock puppet becomes possessed, but they're in like a church basement. And there is a sock puppet sex scene, but there's also a scene where the sock puppet like murders all these people or there's like blood everywhere. I just remember watching this and being the only person in the entire sold out theater who was laughing. And it was really fun, but also a little embarrassing, but oh well. Guess people don't think sock puppet bloody murder is hilarious, but like...
I mean, Mary and I have a long history now of being the only people laughing in a packed theater.
It's very true.
We once made a lot of people mad. We went to go see Cats.
I mean, to be fair, it was Cats, so, fuck them.
And it also wasn't it had been out for months. Anyway, fuck those people. Yep. Moving on.
Yep.
Mary has also recently appeared on the book number 51 episode of Sweet Valley Diaries, a podcast about the 1980s Sweet Valley book series. I never read those, but they were ubiquitous. They were just everywhere.
Oh yeah, they were like Babysitter's Club and whatever the other one was that everybody read all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, so Mary's just making her book podcasting rounds straight from Sweet Valley. All right, if this is your first time listening to the show, what we do here at the Terrible Book Club is we read books that we assume will be bad based on their cover, title, summary, or some combination of the three. Sometimes, like today, we read books or other written ephemera, such as plays, that our patrons, listeners, or friends recommend. So we do the opposite of what most people do when they're in a bookstore or they're browsing the internet looking for an ebook. Usually this experiment results in a disappointing read, but once in a while we do end up liking the book. Content warnings for today, our usual barnyard language, plus we've got cancer, incest, misogyny, murder, sexual assault, and things that are German as fuck. If you are not down with the kraut, get out. This is a German as fuck episode. Also a lot of like American capitalist bullshit. So if none of that stuff speaks to you, perhaps choose another episode.
Real full house here.
Oh, yeah.
Content warning.
The full gamut, but all mentioned very briefly in passing and also kind of, fleetingly. So it's just, don't worry about it too much, I would say.
Yeah, agreed. So I couldn't really find like a blurb or a tagline for this play. So you're just going to get my summary instead. So this is the best summary I could come up with for this play.
Because I need this. I need this. I read this and I need this.
All right, so Hamletmachine is a German postmodernist Hamlet fan fiction play where the actor cast as Hamlet phases in and out of performing the play while pontificating about capitalist consumerism, Western imperialism and war, misogyny, sexual assault, and incest. Maybe?
Yeah, the author described this as, quote, the shrunken head of the Hamlet tragedy, which is honestly pretty accurate. So, props to him.
Yeah, I mean, he knows what he's doing. I just don't particularly like what he's doing. All right, so our characters and setting. So we've got people playing characters in Hamlet. So we've got the old Hamlet himself, Horatio, Ophelia, Gertrude, although she's only referred to as Hamlet's mother in this production, Claudius, and then there's like various angels' voices who function sort of as a chorus, and sometimes I think have individual lines. As for setting, as our patron Miri pointed out in her message to us, the setting for this play and kind of the style in which it is done varies wildly by production. Like, it's just, there's really no standard. It's just a mess.
Yeah. Which is very postmodern, I guess. I'm not an expert in postmodern theater, but I think that's pretty par for the course.
What that word means.
That's a good question. So we'll get to that. But first, I'm going to give a brief lecture on Shakespeare, and this is very brief because Shakespeare is really not important to Hamletmachine at all. But okay, so here are some things that are relevant about Shakespeare for this particular play. Shakespeare was popular, like Marvel Cinematic Universe popular, or like close enough. And he wrote for money. And to get money, he had to write plays that people actually wanted to see. Mm-hmm. So the modern idea that like Shakespeare is highbrow is not exactly accurate. There's actually a story in theater that I'm not sure how true it is, that if an audience didn't like something about a play during the Elizabethan times, they would literally shit into their hands and throw it at the stage. And it is true enough that people closest to the stage were pissing and shitting on the floor, which was made of sand, because that's what they were going to do on it, no matter, like, no one was going to stop them.
Hey, no breaks for intermission, right? You just plow right on through. You got to shit on the floor.
There would have been plenty of ammo, let's just say that. So to avoid that, even in Hamlet, there are a ton of dick jokes to, like, keep the rabble happy. Mm. So now imagine like an SNL sketch from the 90s. I know I'm jumping around here, but like imagine an SNL sketch from the 90s where a presidential character comes out and is sniffing a cigar. And a 90s SNL viewer would know what that means and they would laugh, but show it to a zillennial or whatever they're called, and they would probably not get the reference because the youths are no longer up on like who shoved what where in the Oval Office in the 90s.
Right.
So both Shakespeare and Müller suffer from what I call the dated reference syndrome, which can definitely affect how an audience responds. So like Shakespeare's dated references are mostly obscure dick and syphilis jokes, while Müller's are a lot more specific. Like he was a socialist working in the heavily censored arena of public theater in East Germany from the 1950s to the fall of the wall. And he was like very successful. He even did a stint in 1976 or 7 where he was a visiting professor at the University of Texas. So like they let him leave, which they didn't let a lot of people leave East Germany at the time.
Yeah, that's fair.
So like, you know, he was popular even with the government of East Germany. So his references are even more obscure than Shakespeare's, even though they are over 300 years closer to us than Shakespeare, because like we can still appreciate a dick joke even if it's in iambic pentameter, whereas we're not going to understand the nuances of like East Germany unless you were there or he had family there who talk about it all the time, you know?
Yeah, those are all great points, Mary. Appreciate that insight because, yeah, I also was wondering. I was like, yeah, what am I missing here? And that makes a lot of sense. Yeah,
you're missing a ton. It's like imagine, you know, your children watching an SNL sketch from the 90s. Are they going to understand any of the references? No, and that's fine. It's like pop culture like that is totally ephemeral.
Yeah,
and just because we're missing a lot doesn't mean that we're not getting it. Like, oh man, we just don't understand. Like, no, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that it's just like, it was very of its time in a way that Shakespeare has managed not to be.
Probably. I feel very legitimately that I completely did not understand what was going on at any point for any reason.
Well, let's quickly talk about the things that we thought were good about this. I actually thought the second to last scene about the horrors of war was kind of fine. Like, I at least understood it for the most part. And I mean, I thought it was about the horrors of war and it made sense to me in a lot, you know, and I was like, okay, I'm okay with that scene. It was fine. And secondly, the other thing I liked was, I mean, I appreciate the idea of wanting to subject your audience to a nightmare, to put them in a chaotic, you know, insane sort of situation. But that's probably all I have to say about what I appreciated about this. It was short. It was short as hell. Thank you.
It was very short.
Oh yeah, I also appreciate Miri for this, just specifically for giving us an 8-page Patron request, which is a new record.
I mean, I did have to read it.
Please try to beat that record in future Patron requests.
Yeah, totally. I mean, not that it didn't take me like 45 minutes to read it because I kept throwing the script across the room, shouting bullshit. But, you know,
I actually
that's my own problem.
I have amazing texts from Mary where I asked her to do the episode and was like, okay, cool. And then like hours later, she's sending me screenshots of the printed script with her notes on it. And I was like, Mary, I love you.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Going full like editor here.
Yeah.
I can't help it.
I just stared at it on my phone with increasing confusion and brought it closer and closer to my face as if that would help me understand what was going on.
I just remember when you read it before. I think I read it before you and then you read it and we were having a messenger conversation while Chris was reading it. So in real time, I just see meme after meme of confusion coming from Chris. It's like Krusty the Clown going, the hell is that? And then like a monkey scratching its head. It was just... Oh, that is the experience of reading this play. But Mary, I think you have some things to say about what was good.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily good. I just want to kind of... Here's the thing. I don't want to just shit all over this because it's not my thing, which is true, and I'm going to do that. But I want to at least give it some benefit of the doubt because it's not for me, you know, and that's fine. But so it was explained to me that postmodern theater is more interested in raising questions and invoking emotions rather than displaying plot or characters.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, so it just so happens that I enjoy plot and characters. I'm just crazy like that.
Yeah.
Yes, similar.
But yeah, so
Here,
basically,
I liked...
the idea is that it wants to invoke a series of emotions. And I could see this potentially working if the author was actually able to invoke the emotions they want to at the times they want to.
Right.
I've never seen it work. I've never ever seen it work.
That's very much my problem with this. That is extremely my problem with all of this.
Whenever I am tricked into going to see postmodern theater, the emotions that are invoked, usually it's a free ticket or, you know, someone drugs me or something. But the emotions that are invoked are boredom and, if they're lucky, annoyance. Like, that's all I get out of it. It's not for me. It's just, you know, and quite frankly, if it's not for me, someone who does really like Shakespeare and theater and weirdness and surrealism, then I really don't know who it's for. I can't say, but it's for someone. People like this. I don't know.
Yeah.
But Yeah, so for this particular play, I found a definition, like I think it was on Wikipedia or whatever, that is, I think, accurate for this particular postmodern play, which is that the narrative needs to not be complete, but it can be broken, paradoxical, and imagistic. Like, sure, that happens.
Okay. Yep.
There is a movement away from linearity to multiplicity to interrelated webs of stories. Okay. Where action movement away from linearity, blah, blah, blah. Where action scenes give way to a series of peripatetic dramatic moments, which basically just means it hops around space and time. Yeah. And just is a series of images rather than a real story.
Okay, so it is a nightmare.
It is a nightmare, yes.
That's exactly how I felt.
No, you were right.
It's exactly how it feels is a bad dream, a nightmare or a dream. Yeah, because it has all the same hallmarks of a dream or a nightmare in what you just described. And I guess I'm not totally opposed to that, but
definitely not. I mean, there's been like things
also
like music videos or like weird movies I've seen where there's not a plot, there's not a linear thing to follow.
Yes, music videos are actually an excellent reference because it's like that's exactly what they are. It's like a series of images meant to invoke whatever it is the artists are trying to tell you. However, the thing about music videos is that at least there's like a catchy song playing in the background.
right.
So my husband put this really well. It's like, what is it bringing to the table? Like, there's plenty of stuff that we all like that's surreal and weird and, mostly based on images, like Pink Floyd's The Wall. We all love Pink Floyd's The Wall. It's a great album, but it's definitely it's kind of opaque. Like, it's this very specific artist's very specific vision of his childhood and the world and his inner demons, blah, blah, blah. But it's got a beat and you can dance to it. So there's still something there to enjoy.
Right. There are multiple avenues of enjoyment, I think is what you're getting at, yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure there's anything to enjoy in this particular thing, but it depends on how you interpret it.
Yeah.
I kind of like the one part where it just said Heil Coca-Cola or something for seemingly no reason.
Well, he's
That's
equating
the major thing where I was like, I don't understand what.
So he was a socialist and he was in East Germany. Or socialist democrat or whatever they were called. But he was also critical of socialism. So it's like, he wasn't yay capitalism, but he wasn't necessarily not yay capitalism.
It seemed like he was, I got a very anti-consumerism vibe from this. But anyhow, I'm going to proceed into the things that were not good section of the show, unless you have further comments.
No, I think we're already there, honestly.
Yeah, I think we've stumbled into this in a...
Paris, a small request. Do you happen to have the play nearby?
I do.
Mary does. Mary is prepared.
Could you just open to a random spot and read 5 sentences?
Oh, yes.
You got it. Okay.
Have the real actor
just to give everyone a quality little moment here.
In the loneliness of the airports, I exhale. I am privileged. My revulsion is a privilege. Screened by a wall, barbed wire prison. Yeah, that's basically what we're dealing with. And then I actually, right after that, you're supposed to hold up a photograph of Heiner Müller and then tear it up. That's in the stage directions.
Yeah.
Such
Which
as
I
they
think
are.
Is funny. Yeah, that was one of the few stage directions where I was like, oh, I understand what's happening in the stage directions. There were a lot of stage directions that, okay, for example, my favorite stage direction is the breast cancer shines like the sun. What? Or Ophelia's heart is a clock. So I guess that means, hey, tech people, make her heart look like a clock. I don't know. But breast cancer shining like the sun is very confusing.
Actually, I think the Ophelia's heart is a clock thing. So he wanted a lot of this stuff to be hinted at through a soundscape that you would then have to design and play in the background. So there'd be like a clicking noise and she would have some sort of necklace, weird costume piece that would indicate clock, but it would just be... whatever. It doesn't matter. I think there was a part at which I wrote the words written by a cis man.
Yeah.
Which was probably the part where Ophelia is going and on about being alone with her thighs. And I'm like, yeah,
and
that's
her breasts.
something that women say. Yeah.
It's alone with my tits.
Anyway.
Just me and the tits. Just hanging
me and
out.
the thighs.
Me and the thighs. Just having a time. Yeah, so that brings me to my next point, where there's this heavy negative focus on women throughout this play. Women seem to exist in this play only to be hated, abused, or like signified as dangerous somehow. Yep. Ophelia straight up gives a striptease, and it's not in a way that could be construed as anything that's empowering. It's really hard to view it as anything other than extremely male-gazy kind of stripping. There's a part where the character playing Hamlet says, "I want to be a woman," and Ophelia helps him put on makeup and clothes, and it's described as like whores makeup and whores clothes, and and look, I would understand, because of course representing something in a work doesn't mean that you're approving it or saying this is this. Sometimes it's there to be ridiculed, and I would understand it if all of this was here to show how poorly women are treated in the real world, but it ultimately just feels really voyeuristic and kind of like, I don't know. I got the sense that it was like, oh, poor man dealing with war and capitalism, and then there's these damn women over here, and they're not helping either. I mean, it just really, I could not ferret out a feminist message surrounding any of this. And the weird thing is, like, I read a blurb where someone was like, this play is really feminist. And I was like, how, though? I don't understand.
I can perhaps posit something that I don't think this is it, really, because, again, I was untethered from time and space and reality as I read this, so I have no anchor or point of reference for anything here. But, like, because Ophelia was talking about how used she is all the time, that could perhaps be the feminist message and just acknowledging that women are objects. That's the only possible thing, that just like pointing out that, hey, sometimes women are viewed as sex objects.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you're right, but it doesn't. When I was reading it,
doesn't say anything about that. Yeah. It just uses that.
I
points
think that
at
that
it.
whole symbolism would have to be conveyed by the staging, which there's very little, at least in the version that we are looking at. Maybe there's another version with more stage directions. I don't know. There's very little that we're given in terms of what this is all supposed to mean, which I think is what pisses me off the most. Like, it's so opaque. It's so, like, self-referential to agree but you're also putting this on a stage, but it's all about you and your feelings. And your feelings are extremely, I can't think of any other word than opaque. Like, it's just him with his thoughts, and then he makes us all watch it.
Yeah, it's just like being in his weird dreamscape and not having any feedback from him on what his dreams are about. So you're just like, all right, I don't know, dude, you got some problems, I guess. Like, I don't know.
I mean, he definitely had problems. Like, I think his dad was like taken out of his house when he was a child and killed by Nazis. Like, those are the level of problems he's dealing with. So it's like, this guy has a lot of trauma and like personal complicated feelings about his country. And that is interesting.
Yeah.
This play is not interesting.
Yeah. Just to tie up the feminism thing, I agree, Chris, that I think it was put there to be like, oh, wow, look how abused women are. But when I was reading it, it came off as silly to me. It did not come off. It came off as making fun of the idea that women are abused and ridiculed and treated as negative, dangerous sex objects. Like, it did not come across to me as sincere in those feelings. And again, this might just be because we're not watching a performance of it, which we will do later today. I guess my next point is this play is 8 pages, and that's being generous. What can you really get across to an audience in 15 minutes when your point is buried in a script and scenery that is just a fucking living nightmare? And I know we already talked about it and how there's really no point, but...
Well, and somehow there are staged versions of this that are between 1 and 8 hours long.
Yeah, I
obviously
8?
They add some stuff. Yeah, 8.
That sounds like actual
Müller,
hell.
Müller staged a production of Hamlet that was 8 hours long. It was like Europe is a post-apocalyptic wasteland and Hamlet doesn't matter. And it's like, yeah, I mean, already he doesn't matter.
Yeah, we're already there.
Okay, great.
Hold on. There's play fan fiction out. There's theater fan fiction.
That's
out
what
there?
this is.
Well, yes, there is.
No, but
usually
like the 8-hour version
you
of
just post
Hamlet,
it on
you have to
AO3. You don't actually share it with the world and make people
like an 8-hour production of Hamlet. You've added things. You've expanded the universe with your own version.
You know the play
it's
within
theater
a play.
fan fiction.
You know the play within a play in Hamlet. Or if you're at all familiar with Hamlet, like Hamlet puts on this play that is similar to how his dad was murdered to try and see how his uncle will react to it. Like if he reacts to it badly, that means he probably murdered my dad because he's feeling all guilty. Great part. Müller replaces that play with Hamletmachine. So all the people in Hamlet are sitting around watching Hamletmachine. Oh my God, so meta.
Oh wow.
Yes, I don't know.
I just want
It's
to
another layer of confusing to me.
I just want to say, Chris, that I feel as though most theater is fan fiction because every production is slightly different. Obviously, different groups are going to, some of them
You just
are.
blew my mind with that one. That is so true.
Yeah. I mean, because like some groups are going to make small changes. I mean, think about Mary, the play that I worked on for you, where you decided to set it in a circus with clowns.
Yeah, I added a bunch of clowns and then I killed them all. It was great.
Really
you're
good.
totally right. It's like I added things I was fans of.
Yeah.
I.e. clowns. And then had them all get murdered.
And that play was called The Revenger's Tragedy. I forget who wrote it.
Now I can't remember either, but it's Revenger's Tragedy. Thomas Middleton, I believe.
Thomas Middleton, yes, thank
who
you.
was contemporary with Shakespeare, or maybe just a little bit after. So similar era.
Yeah.
So all I'm saying is that you can take things from Shakespeare's time, including Shakespeare, and add clowns and blood, and all of a sudden it's really entertaining. And, or you can add, a soundscape and imagery about socialist Germany, and then maybe it's not so fun.
Yeah.
It's all what you make of it.
Listeners, I invite you to watch the 14-minute film adaptation of Hamletmachine. We are going to watch it together and post our reaction on Patreon. So if you're a patron, you'll get that. But if not, still, just find it. It's somewhere on Vimeo. Maybe I'll post the link somewhere. Moving on to the next point. I think I said earlier, one of the things I liked about this was the idea that he wanted to put the audience kind of within this nightmarish sort of setup here. And I get that, but I feel like if the audience doesn't understand any element of it or feel any connection to the context of the nightmare, it really, so for me, it really just feels like a bunch of theater people were like, oh man, we need a new high that we can't reach with regular plays. And Müller was like, here, let me make this designer drug of fucking Hamletmachine that just brings you to strange new highs, but at the expense of meaningful experience. And I don't know, that was like just how I felt about it after a couple of days.
I think I wrote this rant into the notes later, but I might as well do it now. I have a problem with postmodern and experimental theater when it gets so far up its own ass that no one who isn't totally versed in the lore of theater can enjoy it.
Yes.
It bugs me. Like it leads to this whole situation that we have, especially in America, where theater seems elitist and intellectual and like only people with a PhD can enjoy it. Which is bullshit because theater is supposed to be fun. It's not. Well, it can be lots of things, but it can be fun. It can be populist. It can involve silly situations and like just pure entertainment. But like now it's so expensive and, things like this make it seem more elitist than it really is.
Yeah.
And it's not that every play has to be for everybody. And obviously that's true. But I don't know, this sort of thing adds to that wall between theater and normal people that is hard to break through when you really enjoy theater and you're like, no, I promise this play will be entertaining. Come watch this play with me. And people are like, I don't know. Gotta go to a whole ass play. And I'm like,
yeah, I know.
Fair.
And
it's fair.
I mean, you're right. And I mean, theater is it's supposed to be accessible, but as you said, for many reasons, it is not. And things like this make it just push it even more into the fringes of elitism and people who
Totally.
can afford
And
it.
it's not like everything has to be for everyone, but this is specifically a play based on Hamlet by Shakespeare, who is like one of the most popular theater people in the history of theater. And it's like Shakespeare would not have enjoyed this. Shakespeare would have been much more prone to making the sort of middlebrow Oscar bait that we enjoy on a regular basis, that everybody watches and kind of enjoys, you know?
Yeah.
He's more like that, except maybe a little better than that. But still, he wants people to enjoy what he does.
Yeah, and I don't know if Müller is really going for that.
No, definitely not.
I mean,
He could care less about what the audience thinks. He really could. That's part of postmodernism is like,
right.
They don't super care how the audience feels about it. It's not about them. It's about the creator or the writer or whatever demons they're trying to exercise at that particular time.
God, that's fucking self-indulgent. Ugh.
I mean, yeah, just a little bit.
Damn.
Isn't most art in some way a minorly self-indulgent?
Yeah, of course, but yeah, that's a whole other end of it. I don't know. I mean, I guess that could be liberating in a lot of ways, right? If you're like, fuck this, I'm going to make this for me. I'm going to get some weirdos to perform it, and if everyone hates it, good. I'm going to go back to my little writing hut. See you later.
Well, I actually found a quote where he talks about this play. The actual author talks about it. He says, It became more than ever anticipated a self-critique of the intellectual. It is the description of a petrified hope, an effort to articulate a despair so it can be left behind." So basically, it's like writing in his dream journal, and it doesn't sound like something that was supposed to be so popular and widespread, but it resonated with a lot of pretentious people. And so now here we are talking about it.
Yeah, here we are. Yeah, and yeah, for me, and I know we've kind of already talked about this a lot unplanned, but it's obvious to me that the confusion and nonsensical nature of the dialogue and the stage directions and scenery, it's just intentionally weird. It's supposed to be that way. Mm-hmm. And I'm just not into things that are weird to be weird. I actually hate that. So for me, it doesn't work. You know, postmodernism is not for me. This play isn't for me. I even dislike performance art in general because they don't often spark a meaningful conversation or thought beyond, well, that was fucking weird, man. I mean, at least in my experience, I mean, yeah, I can't really think of much. I think the only performance art that I ever heard of and was like, oh, was when that woman played at Sleeping Beauty and just let people come up to her and kiss her while she was asleep and people like assaulted her and stuff. And I was like, wow, that's fucked up. All right. Yeah. That has something to say about rape culture and, you know, whatever. Sure.
Absolutely. Because it said something. Like it was an accessible piece of performance art. Yeah. That was not like she was making a direct statement about rape culture, which is great. More people should do that, especially through art. Like, go for it. It should be top of people's minds at all times. But like, and she achieved that.
Right.
A lot of this seems to be, a lot of the more self-indulgent stuff seems to be they don't care what the audience reaction is.
Right.
They're just doing what they want to do because it's somehow meaningful for them. But I'm like, I don't care about you, random artist. I'm not your friend. I'm not your family. Why should I give a shit about your personal inner vision if you're not trying to tell me anything?
Yeah. I mean, unless by chance I share that same exact inner vision and have the same exact problems and just connect with you. I mean, what's the chance of that happening?
I'm imagining someone sitting in the audience of like Hamletmachine being like, yeah, no, I
totally get it,
I can't believe someone said this. Finally.
Breast cancer shining like the sun. I tried to tell you all this. God damn it. Müller, where are you? We must get married post-haste.
Yeah.
We must elope.
Or
under the shining breast cancer sun.
Yeah. Or you're supposed to get your own thing out of it. But I just find that, I mean, personally, like this is just me and my art myopia or whatever. I don't get anything out of things like that. I really don't. I'm just like, look at a weird image or look at some surrealism or whatever. And I'm just like, yeah, okay. It's got a lot of orange in it. I like orange. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. You're trying to find something.
When it's so untethered from like anything that you could pull out of it, I just end up walking away confused. And maybe that's specifically the emotion that this dude was trying to pull out of people. And if so, okay, great job, because But that kind of defeats the purpose of things for me, where I'm walking out of there without anything to like. That's my whole problem with like doing this episode right now. I'm just sitting here going like, what the fuck do I even say besides I confused? I am
That's the
confusion.
thing. You can get confused reading instructions for putting together some IKEA furniture, and at least then you have a nice bookcase at the end of it. It's like what?
No,
What are you bringing to the table?
Billy Bookcase,
Makes you
the
think
musical.
Okay, but I actually had a comparison to make here of something that it was also sort of abstract in a way. I was at the MFA the other week in Boston, and they had an exhibit on like graffiti artists, and I think Basquiat is one that is pretty famous. A French guy that worked in New York, I think. I didn't read many of the plaques. I just looked at stuff because the plaques are very small. It's hard for me to read, so I just kind of look at the thing and just pull my own interpretation out and walk away. Anyway, there was this one piece, and it was like maybe an 8 foot by like 6 foot high board, and standing from a distance, it kind of looked like a blueprint almost, where there was like just a bunch of like, you know, written out words and like arrows pointing in different directions, and it was kind of like celled off into like 9 different spaces. And when you got closer, you saw that like each individual cell was like vaguely related terms. Like in one area, it was like Louis the 16th and the French Revolution and like cannons or something. And they would all just have weird arrows pointing back and forth to like different concepts. And that would kind of link to another cell by like one word or something like that. And that was confusing and somewhat opaque in exactly what the thought process was. But what I took out of it was like, oh, here's someone's particular way of like free associating these thoughts in his particular mind.
Yeah.
And I could see that based on the composition of it being laid out kind of like a blueprint almost. And that might be what Müller was going for here in a way too. Like, here's my particular free associative thought pattern here. But when I don't have any sort of composition that makes that clearer to me, or at least gives me somewhat of an insight for how you're connecting these ideas, like this piece in the graffiti thing had literal arrows connecting thoughts together.
Right.
I can only get confusion out of it. And I can't pull anything outside of like, oh, this is like one guy's, like for the Basquiat thing, that was like very particular hit, like, oh, this is how he associates these particular things, and it might be fun to untangle those things.
Yeah.
But in this, there was none of that.
Yeah.
So,
I think that the problem is that the writing a description of this painting that you're describing, or even verbally saying it like you did just now, is one thing, and then seeing it in the MFA finished piece is another. And that's kind of like the same with this. Like, we're reading a description of what something that should be acted out in a physical space. And so we're not getting the full picture.
Yeah, correct.
I am ambivalent about whether or not the full picture is worth seeing, even based on this description. Whereas from your description of this graffiti piece you were talking about, like, that sounds cool and like something I'd want to look at.
Same.
So good job. You did a better job than Müller at describing something that I want to see. So bravo.
Yeah, and Chris, I think you had a great point in the notes, similar to what Mary was saying earlier, where, you know, making theater less accessible, more elitist. Chris, I don't know if you want to read the note instead of me, but you were talking about, you were explaining like your that even at that exhibit at the Museum of Fine Arts, there was a similar thing where a lot of the pieces had little paragraphs on them, and most of the paragraph was saying, this is a take on postmodern something or rhythm with a blah, blah, blahism bent. And your note was like, I don't give a fuck what genre this is a twist on if I can't understand it. And if all of your explanatory context assumes I know what all of that is, it's a bad explanation. So there's just all these walls, you know, these like locks keeping you from really experiencing anything other than confusion.
Yeah, and if it's a piece of art that's only meant for other artists, then maybe it shouldn't be in a public art building. That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah.
I would also like to credit my partner, Rebecca, for actually articulating that thought in the first place for me, which made it much clearer when I was reading this thing on how I felt about that.
Oh, thanks, Rebecca.
Citing my sources.
Props to Rebecca.
Yeah. I was also just thinking, when Mary was talking about how, we're definitely missing a piece of it by not watching a performance, and I agreed. I started to think about how I did actually like the stage direction where he's like, oh, rip up a picture of me. But then I'm like, if you're in the fucking audience, you don't know what he looks like. You don't know what that picture is. Like,
Well, this is another thing about dated references. It's that he was an incredibly popular writer in East Berlin from the 50s to the 70s. So people in the audience very well might have known what he looks like, which is something that's going to be lost in subsequent generations doing this thing without looking at his photo on Wikipedia.
Yeah, and I'm also, I guess I was just thinking, like, how big would the photo have to be for the audience to be able to fucking see it, right? Like, I would be ripping up this giant poster board.
No, absolutely. But on the other hand, theater people absolutely put little Easter eggs in their own shows that no one in the audience will ever be intended to see. But they're not usually something that's so big and in the audience's face as showing them a picture and ripping it up as if that's supposed to mean anything to them. It's usually some little dumb bullshit in the background. I do that all the time, and I love it. It's my favorite part usually. But it's not for anyone, and it doesn't distract from anything.
Yeah. All right, Mary, I think I'm going to let you close this out because you got a good note here about what we're talking about right now.
Yeah, okay. So basically, what I said was what I dislike most about postmodern theater and really anything in this sort of experimental arena is that it's so elitist. And most of these plays seem to be intended for an audience that is so bored with theater, like Paris said, that they have to pursue a new kind of high and an intellectually stimulating philosophical experience, which is great. Fine, great, good for them. But it simply adds to the...
You want a nightmare? I got a play nightmare in here. Check it out.
Hey, man, right down here. Yeah, absolutely. So it's like, you're great. But it just makes it more impenetrable for people who are not familiar with theater, who hear about these kind of things that get famous. And they're just like, well, that's just some more intellectual bullshit. And honestly, this is like a giant problem in all of America right now, let's just say, where there seems to be this big schism between so-called intellectualism and I don't know what you even call the other side, populism.
Yeah, regular
but populism. These are the sort of things where if you made an interesting postmodern piece that spoke to lots of different people, wouldn't that be even more impressive than whatever this is? Like,
agreed.
That would be really cool. But
it would be. But instead
doesn't happen very often.
We got, hey kid, you want to see breast cancer shine like the sun?
Hey kid, you want a bump of Müller?
Want to hear Hamlet say really gross things about Gertrude? Super gross, I promise.
Oh yeah, we didn't even talk about the creepy incest lines. Actually, I think before,
we don't need to.
No, we don't. But I think before we go to the "Can we fix it" section, I really think we should have some more lines read from the play, so you as listeners can understand
short episode
how confusing the dialogue and the text is. I mean, even just the very beginning opening monologue.
I'm going to start from the very beginning.
Perfect.
Although I do like in the stage notes. Let's see, some of the text, they quote English words and phrases. These are outlined below in rectangles rather than an alternate font or italics so as not to disrupt Müller's deliberate use of capital letters and spacing. So important in a theater piece that people are listening to with their ears to know what things are capitalized. Okay, anyway. I was Hamlet. I stood on the coast and spoke with the surf, blah, blah, at my back the ruins of Europe. The bells sounded in the state funeral, murderer and widow a pair, the town councillors in goose step. That's way too soon. Too soon, Müller. Behind the coffin of the high cadaver. I kind of like that, actually. High cadaver.
Yeah.
That would be a good band name.
There's a couple of good, like, phrases in here.
Yep. Wailing in badly paid grief. Who is the corpse in the meat wagon sty? Those are all capitalized, so I'm going to assume they're shouted.
Yes.
For whom is there such a hue and cry? That's some rhyming, so that's nice at least. The corpse is of a great giver of estate. Love it. Anyway, you get the idea.
Sure,
I did like
just
the
give
badly
me-
paid grief because people did actually used to pay for mourners at funerals. That was a thing that happened in the past, so I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
But otherwise, fuck this shit.
Give us one more random poll. Just like
All right,
let
all right.
the pages
Maybe, like-
fall open where they may.
Oh, maybe like Ophelia's monologue or
You wanna-
whatever about her
yeah, you want
alone with her.
Ophelia?
Yeah,
Oh,
give us a
God.
little Ophelia.
Yeah.
Here's a little Ophelia for some Ophelia for your nerve. I am Ophelia, she who the river could not hold. The woman on the gallows, the woman with the slashed arteries, the woman with the overdose, on the lips snow, the woman with the head in the gas oven. I don't know, on the lips snow is capitalized. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I stopped killing myself. Great. That's great.
Cool.
Good for you, Ophelia.
Good job. Good work. And now she's
I
just
re-
alone
just
with
a-
her thighs. What are you going to do?
Someone said that the last...
Always alone with my thighs.
So I saw some lecture somewhere that said the last line of Ophelia's monologue was actually a quote from Squeaky Fromme. So talk about like obscure 70s references.
What is
that
Squeaky Fromme?
Oh, she was the one who tried to assassinate Gerald Ford, I want to say. Reagan or Ford, one of them. We can't remember.
I didn't even know that there were assassination attempts on those presidents.
Yeah. So anyway,
Oh, wow.
there you go.
All right. Well, now that we've really just tied the bow on that weirdness for you with Mary's performance, let's move into the "Can we fix it?" section. Chris, what do you think? Can we fix this?
I definitely can't. This is like, rolling me up to like a Mars rover that has broken in Mars atmosphere and it's telling me, hey, fix it up, please. I have no frame of reference to begin to untangle what could possibly be wrong and how to fix it. So I have to bow out.
Chris
I'm
bowing
sorry.
out. All right. Nice attempt. I mean, I think there is definitely a way to plunge your audience into chaos, but still have them be aware of why you're doing that, perhaps with clearer dialogue, a longer runtime, or just a more focused concept. Although apparently all of that is the antithesis of postmodernism. So, I mean,
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
You don't get it, Paris.
I know, I'm a fucking idiot. God damn it. I actually did feel incredibly stupid the first time I read this. I was like, I didn't understand what I read. I'm an idiot.
Maybe that's the feeling he was trying to invoke. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I think this could be, I think you can do a reinterpretation of Hamlet about East Berlin in the 70s. But
Sure.
you just, I don't know. Again, back to the points we've made many times. There needs to be some sense of purpose here other than confusion, because a lot of things can confuse you. I could just say nonsense words at you and that would confuse you. But then you're going to fucking put on a whole play about it? Like, why put all that effort in if it's just about confusion or uneasiness? Anyhow, I think a lot of things would need to change for this to be kind of something that was palatable to me. Of course, I know this is a very popular play. A lot of other people enjoy it for its people who like things that are weird for the sake of weird. I guess if you are one of those people, this is for you. Alas, it is not for me. Mary, what do you think?
There's a 4-hour opera version, apparently.
Oh, God.
We want to go deep.
Oh.
I wouldn't recommend it. Yeah, can we fix it? No, I don't think so. Absolutely not. I don't want anything to do with this. It gives me hives. I get mad at people who perform. I even get mad at people who perform Hamlet in a way that I consider wrong. I think because Hamlet is so good and it's about a man that directors tend to do it in a way that's totally joyless and it's too serious, and they suck all of the fun and joy out of Hamlet. Hamlet has a ghost. Like, come on, it's a fun play.
It's got a ghost. It's got dick jokes. I mean, yeah, it's got absurd situation. There's a pirate. There's pirate shit that everyone forgets about. Like,
There's a whole ass pirate ship. I mean,
Yeah.
come on. So I'm just gonna say, the average Elizabethan audience member was not better educated than the average American. I know that sounds shocking, but it's true. And they loved this shit. It was so popular. Shakespeare was so popular that after he died, people made up plays that they claimed were his last play. And because there was no intellectual property laws back in the day.
Right.
And though even those were popular. So it's like,
yeah.
There's a sequel to Taming of the Shrew. Okay. I just want to point that out.
The
There's
retaming of the
It's called
bluebird.
The Tamer Tamed.
The Tamer Tamed.
I don't think it came out in Shakespeare's lifetime, but it was either right in his lifetime or right after. And it is hilarious. So, like, Shakespeare was popular.
Paris, is The Tamer Tamed not something that we would see Ken send us in our Terrible Antiques Books Freaks chat, where he just sends us random romance novels with terrible titles and bad blurb? Tamer Tamed totally sounds like one of those.
Yeah, it would be about a lion shifter falling in love with a tiger shifter. Oh,
yeah,
God.
Of course.
And they would fall in love in a circus.
It's the same characters in Taming of the Shrew. It's just the guy who was the tamer has been tamed.
Thanks. I don't need to see the play anymore.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. For a play that's 400 years old.
Oh, wow. Well, this was certainly a time. We are going to actually watch the 14-minute film version of Hamletmachine. So I encourage you all to do that just so you can get a sense of the visual and experience it being performed rather than simply read. You can also just find the 8-page play online for free. There are a couple of translations that are out there that are easily accessible. So I don't know. Thanks so much, Mary, for being here. You definitely made this more accessible for us.
Yeah.
No problem.
Thank you for your quick edition of Y'all Ham and Wrong with Mary Parker.
I have very strong opinions about Hamlet, and we don't need to get into them because this play has nothing to do with Hamlet. Let's just continue.
Yes.
Yeah. So thanks a lot for being here. Mary, do you have places that people can find you, or would you rather not be found on the internet?
You can find me wandering the streets of Boston, like trying to convince people that theater can be fun. Or if you are interested in science, you can listen to my podcast by Googling Eureka's Sounds of Science.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Sorry, I forgot the title of that. Thanks for putting that in there.
No worries.
So you can listen to Mary talk about science. I'm sure we'll have Mary back.
Far fewer rants about Hamlet on my science podcast.
Yeah, Mary does science stuff.
That's when you're out on the streets trying to convince people about theater, and they're probably put off a little bit by the sudden Hamlet rants. From
maybe
strangers.
a little bit. It could be the crazy in my eyes, or the way that I grip their hands too hard when I talk about how Gertrude is a really lame character.
I mean, alternatively,
Y'all ham it wrong.
Alternatively, it could be all the clown ephemera that's usually on your body.
Could be. Could possibly be.
Yes, just a clown woman running up to me in the streets of Boston, screaming, "Y'all ham and wrong."
I mean, usually that's something you see in New York, not Boston. So I'm bringing it back.
Bringing it back. Oh, all right. Well, let's. Oh, sorry, Chris. Did you have something there?
No, I was just saying, let's wrap it up.
Yeah. All right. So this is just a segment where we thank patrons. So thank you.
Give the show a coherent ending.
I turn to the sea. Blah blah blah. Okay. Thank you, patrons. Thank you to Miri for recommending this. This was a great recommendation, both for brevity of form and batshitedness of content. Thank you, Miri, for being a patron and for recommending this. Thank you to the rest of our patrons.
Thanks, Miri. You broke me.
Yeah, actually, thank you, Miri, for getting Mary on the show, because I've been trying to find an excuse to shoehorn Mary into this podcast for years. Well, thank you to the rest of our glorious patrons. Thank you, Dari, Greg, Veronica, Will, D, Jared, Lynn, Sinya, Yakub, Bobby Blackcat, Jensina, Mayo Cat, Elliot, Kieran, Martin, Jay, Scott, Luchek, CTAP1, Miri, again, Yanka, Robert Allen Cook III, David, Julius, and Anya. Thank you all. God, patrons have just been coming out of our ears lately.
Oh my God, the David? That's amazing.
Yes.
Wow.
It's him.
Great patrons.
We're still waiting on that new art, and then we'll put it on some stuff and send it to you patrons. But I think it's soon to be finished. Question mark. And if you also want to help support the show, you could become a patron, terriblebookclub.com. Well, you could go to terriblebookclub.com. That is our website. But that was not the address for the Patreon. There is a button to get to the Patreon. I did not start this segment correctly. I'm going to go back and start again. All right.
No, keep going. This is funny. This is good. Go. Stop ruining good airtime.
So if you can find our Patreon, you can subscribe to it. I'm not going to give you its location. You can also simply...
We're going to obscure it with postmodern website plugs.
You can
very on brand.
I know. If you are a YouTuber, you could go on there and just click subscribe on the Terrible Book Club YouTube channel to help us reach monetization. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Goodreads if you're on any of those platforms. You can send us an email at terriblebookclub@terrible. Wow, can't talk. No, that's okay. This is postmodernist dialogue. It's fine. I can just say nonsense. It doesn't matter.
Free association. Go for it.
You can email us at terriblebookclub@gmail.com, or you can send us a message on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Goodreads, or Patreon if you're a patron. Otherwise, it's nice to hear from folks in reviews, or if you just want to share the show for others, also helpful for us. Any of those things are cool. I think that's all I've got. If Chris or Mary have anything, go ahead. But otherwise, I think I'm going to skitter off into the darkness.
You should check out Graveborn at gravebornma.bandcamp.com.
Oh yeah, Chris,
where we have a new album coming out.
Woo! Chris has
got 2 singles up. When the next episode is up from this one, the album will be fully released. On that episode, I talk about just the singles. I should have talked about how the album will be out by then. But hey, you're gonna hear it in like reverse order, postmodern.
Oh yeah, it's all part.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, on a scale from Bjork to like Philip Glass, how postmodern is your new album?
I think Bjork is still a little too high for it. So if that's like the low end of the scale, like we're like half a Bjork, maybe. Like
okay, half a Bjork. That's great.
Quarter,
no, that's actually my palate level. So that's appreciated.
Oh my god,
it's still pretty very clearly death metal, but like it's supposed to be able to loop back on itself like from start to end, and like it's a continuous play kind of a thing. So it's one of those things.
That's a little post.
Okay, so I'd call that a Radiohead. Yeah. Half a Bjork is a Radiohead officially on the new scale.
Okay, sure. Makes sense.
Oh, well, hopefully we'll see you all next time for, I guess, the next edition of Postmodernist Scales with Chris and Mary.
Sick.
All right.
All right.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, Paris. Bye, Mary.
Bye.